Welcome to the Oviedo CRA Governing Board meeting. It is 5:30 p.m. We have 6 of 7 members present this evening. Deputy Mayor Henkin will not be in attendance tonight. At this time, I will turn it over to Mr. John Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for saying. A couple items on the agenda this evening. The first item is the review and approval of the minutes for May 1st, 2017 Oviedo CRA meeting.
Certainly. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion to adopt the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All righty, Mr. Jones, you're up again.
Very good. The next item on the agenda is the preliminary budget for fiscal year 17-18 for the Oviedo CRA. We've attached an agenda item that outlines some proposed preliminary budget items, and we'd like to open it up for discussion on those items at this time. If there are any questions, or if you would like to discuss them further, or I can just roll through the budget recommendations for fiscal year 17-18.
John, why don't you do a brief update first,
Yes,
then we'll
sir.
go into questions, and then we'll go into motion.
Yes, sir. What we have presented here this evening is the proposed preliminary budget for fiscal year 17-18. The available TIF that's available for use in projects is $445,891 based on the anticipated taxable value from the Seminole County Property Appraiser's Office, along with an additional $66,000 of unencumbered TIF funds from fiscal year 2016-2017. This gives us a total revenue available for projects of $511,891. The primary focus of the Oviedo CRA for previous year's TIF funds was to secure the implementation of the Oviedo on the Park projects. Funds have been utilized for infrastructure and amenity development and to catalyze private sector investment and increase the economic activity in Oviedo associated with the establishment of the Oviedo on the Park project. The CRA has also reserved funds in fiscal year 15-16 and 16-17 for a facade grant program that has heretofore been unutilized. The CRA also provided $6,200 for bicycle facility inventory analysis with VHB that is currently in process. The CRA held a reserve balance in 16-17 of $78,861, of which that $66,000 was unencumbered. The focus on CRA projects presented in this preliminary budget now shifts the focus of CRA activities from the south end of the CRA with Oviedo on the Park onto the northern end of the CRA. The northern end of the CRA is a location where the historic downtown is. The items identified in the budget recommendation for fiscal year 17-18 include CRA administration, financial department support services, the continuation of the facade grant program, implementation of Oviedo on the Park, continued implementation of Oviedo on the Park, preparing a downtown master plan, and also supporting stormwater pond realignment and improvements, and also keeping a reserve for contingency. The total preliminary CRA budget is $511,891. The proposed projects and activities that have been identified in this preliminary budget are consistent with the adopted redevelopment plan, the strategies, programs, tasks, and activities that were identified in the 2010 Oviedo Community Redevelopment Plan. The recommendation from CRA staff is that the CRA Governing Board direct the City Manager and the CRA Coordinator to prepare a CRA budget resolution to enable the adoption of the proposed preliminary budget by the CRA as may be amended by preceding discussions for presentation and consideration by the Oviedo City Council for inclusion in the fiscal year 17-18 city budget.
Thank you, John.
Yes, sir.
I'll take questions on the budget. We'll just do them orderly. Just ask to be recognized, and I will. Hearing none, should I just go up and down? Nope. Dave or Tim, do you want to start?
No, I didn't raise
All
my
right.
hand.
Dave?
Okay. A couple of these items I have some questions about.
Yes, sir.
One of them you talk
Dave,
about
just pull the mic down a little.
Sorry.
okay.
Implementation, Oviedo on the Park, Center Lake Park.
Yes, sir.
And my concern isn't necessarily the item, but if we're accidentally running afoul of the statute that points out that you're not supposed to spend money on anything that was in a capital plan when you adopted the redevelopment plan unless it's been removed from the plan for more than 3 years. So
Yes, sir.
to me, these appear to be relatively recent expenditures that were part of city capital plans back when the redevelopment plan was adopted, which I presume was sometime in 2011, that haven't been removed for more than 3 years. So I'm a little concerned that we're straying into that prohibition,
Yes, sir.
regardless of whether this is in the redevelopment plan or not in the redevelopment plan because of those capital budgets.
Yes, sir. Couple items that I can clarify for you, and then I'll respectfully request Mr. Cobb or Mr. Boop to step in and address the timeliness question. The Oviedo CRA redevelopment plan was adopted in 2010, and it did identify the implementation of Oviedo on the Park as one of its primary redevelopment strategies, and also identified support of the Oviedo on the Park project in the implementation plan of the CRA. So from that aspect,
Can
it
you
was...
speak up a little bit?
I'm sorry. From that aspect, sorry.
Like even more than that?
I'll get closer to the
Oh,
mic.
fabulous. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So from that aspect, it was identified in 2010 in the Oviedo Community Redevelopment Plan as a project. With regards to the issuance of the debt and the timing of the debt, I will have to defer to Mr. Cobb and Mr. Boop.
But before we go on,
Yes, sir.
I'm not questioning, just so everyone understands, whether Oviedo on the Park was part of the redevelopment plan. It clearly was.
Yes, sir.
What I'm referring to is the statute that says what you can't spend tax increment
Yes, sir.
funding on.
Yes, sir.
And there's a list of things that if they were part of a city capital plan, then you can't unless certain conditions occur, and I'm questioning whether those conditions have occurred. So I'm not questioning, was this part of the redevelopment plan? It clearly was. So that's just point of clarification for discussion.
Understood.
That's it.
Understood.
Scott, do you have an answer for Mr. Axel?
Actually, no, Mayor, I'd have to go and look at the statute and make sure and compare the statute to whatever CIPs that we would need to compare them to, and then try to come up with a determination on where it's all. If I hear Mr. Axel correctly, it's a timing question
Yes,
as
sir.
far as did we meet the criteria for something to be included. And so it's just a matter of being able to go in and take a look, just do a review of that.
All right, well, that's a very good point, an important question. So we certainly, before this is adopted later on, would certainly need an answer to that one.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Axel, do you have anything else? Dave?
Just one last thing. The downtown master plan, I presume, is a proposed, from reading this, code update. And I'm just asking for consideration from the city manager and from Teresa. You've, in essence, got a brand-new staff, so I don't know if you were thinking this is a in-house function, an outside function that we're paying someone else to do, but I thought perhaps without pressure on redevelopment until the road work's done there, maybe this is something we defer till you get your folks on board with the culture and the way things in Oviedo are, and it's just school for thought, that's all. So I'm just asking for input from the city manager on, can we spend some money on something physical and defer code updates till when we need them, or let things be developer driven down there, just for discussion.
Okay. As far as the plan update and code update, you want to do the plan update first, so that the code update is consistent with what you're planning.
So this is a plan update, not a
Yes, sir.
code update?
This is a plan update. This will be
Okay.
an update to the downtown master plan.
Okay.
When the downtown master plan was done in the early 2000s, the idea was that we would focus on the south end where we had the blank canvas and create development, and then hopefully it would influence its way northward toward the traditional downtown, and then you would see everything start to build out that way. The plan's actually happening because we see things actually moving from Oviedo Park up Oviedo Boulevard toward the old downtown. And we also have had discussions with a number of the property owners in the downtown that are looking to redevelop their properties, looking at what's occurring to the south. The road project has caused, like with the townhouse project, where we actually relocated the restaurant to a different piece of property, and there was a redevelopment there. And so the idea is that the original plan was adopted in 2002 and then amended in 2003. It's been over 10 years. And now that we're starting to see that movement northward to look at conditions today, to say, is what's planned in the plan for the downtown, is that where we want to go, or do we want to go in a different direction? Is there something missing? Are these densities and intensities still acceptable? Is this the type of development that we want to do in that downtown, based on the fact that in 2002 and 2003, the road really was known, but we didn't really know what it was going to be. Now it's under construction. So, unless, John, if I'm going down the wrong way, let me know.
No, you're going the right direction.
So
What's the timetable on doing that master plan?
there is.
Can we set one? Because if we're going to set aside money to do this, and there's code revisions that are on the horizon and budgeted for this next cycle, it would seem that we'd have to do this pretty quickly, so we're not slowing things down.
Could be.
But,
that's
Dave's
it.
got the floor, so.
It's that if the board wants to do it, now's a good time to do it. If the board feels that, like you just stated, maybe it would be best to wait until the roadway's done, see what we've got, and then adjust the plan. That way we know we can adjust the plan around the roadway. That's something we can also look at too. But when you're sitting on a plan for now going on 14 years, sometimes it's good to go ahead and take a look and see where we were. That was one of the reasons why we did the plan in 2002, was because the plan was originally written in 1977.
All right, that answers my question. I appreciate it.
Dave, anything else?
Only just suggesting, if we come back at our next meeting and there's a problem with the $257,000, perhaps we should discuss a little later tonight what other projects we might set aside funds for, if that occurs. That's all. I'll wait to hear what everyone else has to say tonight.
All right. Tim, do you have anything?
Sure. So we're going to spend over half of our budget on interest. I don't think that is a healthy CRA budget. I understand what drives the TIF fund, but I don't agree that is the best direction for the CRA. Will we have input and drive the downtown master plan, or will that be outsourced and we don't have any input?
The master plan will be driven by this board because it's your plan.
And we're paying
Okay.
100% for it.
And you would be paying for it. So therefore, whoever's doing it, whether it's staff, whether it's Mr. Jones's firm, or whether it's a firm of your selection, they will be working for you.
Okay.
So, and actually, if Mr. Jones's firm does it, that's considered in-house as well, because they are your staff.
That's all I have.
Ready? Councilwoman?
Same concerns about the debt. I know it's how we balance our budget, but I'm not sure if legally it's allowed. So
We'll find out.
probably should find out and consider what else we could do with that. Also had a question on the public art element. I saw mention of it in a memo, but I'm trying to figure out, where does that fit into the budget, or did it not quite fit into the budget?
The request for the public art funding was considered, and we reviewed the existing adopted community redevelopment plan, and we couldn't find a rational nexus or a link to plug it in.
Rational nexus.
Yeah, no, the long and short of it was it's not in the CRA plan at this time.
Okay. I don't like the use of legal-sounding words for something like that, because there's a rational nexus if this board decides that it should be in the plan, which I guess we're going to be updating. So, if this is approved, I should
Yes,
say.
ma'am.
Okay. But that was my main question. Everything else is going to shake out once we have info on
Yes, ma'am.
on the timing.
Bob?
I'm good.
You good? Keith?
Just a couple things popped out, and I apologize. I'm still working a detail out of Mississippi, so I'm a little bit behind with this stuff. Are we allowed to use CRA funds for programming?
Yes, sir.
We are. Do we have any of that in the budget?
We have $10,000 allocated for the facade grant program.
Okay. What about the, I saw the $45,000 for the administrative.
Yes, sir.
Can you break that down a little bit? What does that cover?
That covers your annual reporting and your administration of the CRA, and also your submittal of required, how do you say, reporting documents to DEO.
Okay. Is that
That's
for
me.
you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. But we have a programming director now, Brian. Does any of the funds, are they able to fund part of his duties?
Are you talking about IT?
No, programming of events at the park.
Yes.
We do? We can?
We could, I think it would be more on the line of the events themselves, I would think. Maybe. I mean, as far as the staffing is concerned, I would have to defer to Mr. Jones, but I would think it would be a maybe.
The city and the, thank you very much, Mr. Cobb. The city and the CRA have entered into an interlocal agreement where if city staff is utilized for CRA activities, a portion of that cost can be paid by the CRA to compensate for the expense to the city for utilizing city staff for CRA activities.
Okay. All right. That's all I got, Mayor.
Okay, great. Just a couple of things to add. All the points brought up this evening are extremely valid, of course, and statutes notwithstanding. I think we need to know the answer to that. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, though. I remember when we did the downtown master plan years ago, as you mentioned, it really focused on Oviedo on the Park. And the historic downtown, if memory serves me correctly, was mentioned and was really just outlined in boxes, but was never really planned fully. Am I correct in my recollection?
I looked at it, and there's like 3 degrees within the master plan. The first degree, you're correct. It focused on Oviedo on the Park. It went into great detail on Oviedo on the Park. The next degree was the old downtown, and it gave it basic, these are the types of uses within the different categories, and they gave some very general densities and intensities, but they didn't go into the level of detail that they did in the Oviedo on the Park. Then the third degree is the area that's south of Mitchell Hammock Road, and they gave that what I would say lip service.
Right.
You know, they basically said, well, it'll be what it is. And so, yes, the downtown part of it isn't on the same level as you would find for the Oviedo on the Park part.
Well, you know, my opinion on this is the master plan update is extremely important, especially now that we have a board and we have funds coming in. But, you know, as part of that, and Tim brought this up, it's good to hear that the CRA board will be the one, I don't want to use controlling's a bad word, but being involved in it.
Overseeing.
But, you know, we really got to get back to some visioning for the city, because as you hit the nail on the head, you know, the visioning of all of this was 13, 14 years ago, and things have changed. So, you know, as part of that master plan, I think that we can reevaluate what's been done, what boxes have been checked, what boxes need to be checked, and then, you know, rather than once a quarter having a meeting and trying to decide how we're going to spend $500,000 and next year it'll be $750 and who knows what it'll grow to, we need that vision statement like we got hanging on the door over there, or behind the door, I should say, on the wall, so there's a consistent direction not only this board, but, boards in the future, who obviously will tweak it as they go. And then you have the same thing, I bring it up like a broken record, and, I sound like Megan in golf cart ordinances sometimes, I'm sure, but the same thing on our board. But, that's another story for another day, and I didn't notice that in the budget presentation I was given the other day, but I quietly left it alone for the time being. So, and there's other things in the code. While we're sitting here about what this historic downtown can become, we're missing the boat here on items that are happening in other cities that we should be concentrating on. Things like, the microbreweries. Our code outside of Oviedo on the Park doesn't allow that. And those types of places, I'm not quite certain that Oviedo on the Park is the rental rates that they need. But the old historic downtown area with some of the older buildings, it may be. I don't know. But, we got to change the mindset on some of this. And the seven of us have to get together and have these master planning, have these visioning, take what we've done, and Councilman Britton says it all the time, reevaluate what we already have and see where it's got to be tweaked, improved upon, and rediscussed. So, past that, the budget is what it is for now, barring the fourth line item, but I'd like to see this board start to get into that type of mode, so we're just not coming in and having 7 different ideas, which I'm not sure we do. I think we all have the same goal. It's certainly we all want to go in the same direction, but it'd be nice if we all get it on paper. But better than something that's 13 or 14 years old, or even the CRA plan. At
Yes,
this
sir.
point, was it 7 years old?
7 years.
We took us years of lobbying to get that thing done. So just my 2 cents. But let me go up and down the dais one more time. I'll see if there's anything else for the good of the order. What do you need us to do with this, John?
We need a motion for you to authorize the city manager and the CRA coordinator to prepare the CRA budget resolution to enable the adoption of the proposed preliminary budget by the CRA, and then present it for consideration to the Oviedo City Council for inclusion in the 17-18
That would
budget.
obviously be subject to the questions that have been raised on item number 4.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, what's your scheduled deadline for the budget? Do we need to meet again in order to be able to do this, to keep the city budget
I
on
think there
track?
is another meeting before it, but let's just go to Mr. Cobb for our schedule.
Actually, your meeting on September 18th, that is the night that we would be adopting the city
So-
budget. So if you wanted to have an August budget or budget meeting, that
I
might
was
be
just
wise.
going to suggest perhaps, I don't
Does
know if
board
it makes
get
sense
back
tonight,
together?
should we throw out a couple thoughts? We can obviously have, let's say, okay, we're going to have more of a contingency, but perhaps there's some items within the city capital improvement plan that can be funded by the CRA that aren't prohibited, that could be some actual physical things that can occur. And Mr. Hankins not here, but he always likes to say, well, let's get something done and show people, put up a sign, the CRA did this. So,
Boardwalk through the woods?
well, I actually...
Oh, wait, I think that got
We
killed.
just need a couple million more for that.
There's a couple items, I'll mention one, and Mr. Cobb, maybe you can enlighten us. The Wood Street connection is designed and not funded, right?
Right.
Or it's partially funded?
Construction is partially funded, yes.
What, do you know offhand the gap?
No, sir, I don't.
So that would be, to me, a connection of an existing neighborhood to Oviedo on the Park to benefit the people that are sitting there. And we could do it now and take some pressure off. It's not really our role as a CRA, let's say, but take some pressure off the city capital budget to go do some other things. So that, to me, is one good thing. In here, which I think is a really good thing, I know everybody likes the idea of master storm. Is this pond realignment and improvements, that's for the historic downtown master system?
Yes, sir.
And that's going to be a much bigger budget item than that, so perhaps we could realign some money, some more money into the storm systems and really invigorate the opportunities for all the smaller pieces down there. And that's just a couple thoughts. So is the right thing to do is perhaps ask the staff to identify for us candidate projects that don't potentially fall afoul of the statute, or have this board come up with everybody's list of what can we do?
Well, let me ask the board. We'll see. Tim, what are your thoughts on that? Would you like staff to put together an alternate list? We meet in August, so that way we get ahead of the curve of September.
I certainly would rather do something tangible than pay interest carry with that $257,000. But I understand the city is in a situation where they have a budget that they're trying to prepare, and I don't want to delay that.
Can we, this is middle July, so we have a meeting in the first week of August and then the second week of August. I'm going to assume first week of August is probably too soon for these items.
Well, one thing you can look at is we have a...
Why don't you give us some dates, so maybe that can help everybody. Dates that maybe we're meeting that, we'll just come in early.
Well, this was one of the things that I was going to suggest. Let's see. We have the August 7th regular session. We also have the August 21st regular session. Mr. Boop, were we planning a work session in August for the council? Yes, we have a work session on August 28th. We could double up on that one as well. We could do CRA first and then do city council right afterwards. It wouldn't have to necessarily be a meeting, or unless you wanted it to be a meeting. We could, the first city council public hearing on the budget is September 7th.
Well, the 28th, in my opinion, just my opinion, I'll ask the board, I think that's getting a little
Maybe.
late.
We could
I'd rather do the, again, in my opinion, I ask everybody, 21st may be a better option, but
Might be.
let me see what everyone's thinking. Tim, what do you think?
Sure, 21st.
David?
Fine.
21st.
21st of
Bob?
August?
Yeah, earlier. Or even the 7th. Is that just too early?
I may
Got to
rush
give,
it just a
I
little
think,
bit.
staff
That only
a
gives
chance
them a
to come
couple
up
of
with a
weeks.
list or research the statute.
You got a council meeting that night?
The 21st is council meeting, Keith, yeah, so we could just come in a little earlier.
Yeah. I think that's doable for me,
All righty, why don't we shoot for that, Brian?
Okay.
as long as I'm not in Mississippi.
All righty. Well, if you're in Mississippi, we'll have you telephone in or something. We'll figure it out. Is there any other questions, or do we kind of wrap this one up for right now? All righty, well, I think we do need to make a motion for them, and from what I had suggested, if everybody was comfortable with it, we could make a motion to adopt pending resolution of item number 4 being brought back to this board, so at least we give them direction to start to put something together.
Well, Mayor, if I could just...
Or would you rather us just wait till the 21st?
I was going to say, since we need to bring you back information, my recommendation to you, let's wait till the 21st.
Okay, done.
We're going to proceed with getting the budget prepared. If we get it to a point where all we have to do is implement numbers, that's not difficult.
Okay.
So I think we'll be okay. We understand the direction of the board.
Everybody comfortable with that up on the board?
Yes.
Looks like I have consensus for that. All righty, John, I'll turn it back over to you, because I believe that's all we have on that item. We just have our upcoming meeting scheduled. Do you want to do the announcements and also announce, obviously, the 21st?
Yes, sir. Upcoming meetings, we have August 21st proposed as a CRA meeting at 5:30 p.m. Also September 18th, 2017 at 5:30 p.m., and then November 20th at 5:30 p.m.
Great. Anything else for the good of the order from anybody? Staffs? Board?
Oh, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Even if it is permissible, and that's a big, big wild card, I would just really, really prefer that we don't spend it on interest. I don't know if Tim's feeling the same way, but if there's a way we could shuffle the big budget to make it happen without all that going.
I think there's principle in that payment, too, is there not?
Is there principal
There
also?
probably is, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there is.
But whatever portion is going to that, if we can shift that.
Let's see what happens on the 21st. Anything else from anyone? Microbreweries, we'll have that on the next agenda. Glad to hear it. All righty.
Craft brewery would be a better term. Micro's
craft.
too small.
We could have had
Micro's
red
too small?
citrus.
Micro's too
Craft,
small.
excuse me. Let me, I'll
you
take
go.
the advice of my fellow CRA member. Craft brewery.
Sure the chief agrees.
All righty. With that all being said, one more time, anything else?
Or drunks.
Nope. We're adjourned.